Reading from Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, Madhya Kanda, chapter 8. Mahaprabhu displays his opulence. Although for Nimai there is no pain but only actual blissfulness, I will be happy to remain unaware of all this. Lord Chaitanya, the Supreme Lord, knew Sachi Mata's wishes, so accordingly he infused divine ecstasy in her. As long as Lord Chaitanya performed kirtan and dancing, Mother Sachi entered a state of deep spiritual exhilaration and became heedless of this material world. Unceasingly, the Lord spent these days in kirtan and ecstatic dancing, surrounded by his followers. Many days the devotees would collect in the Lord's house and begin loud sankirtan while the Lord immersed himself in dancing. At times the Lord exhibited his mood as the omnipotent supreme controller. Then at other times he wept in humility, saying, "I am your servant." Dear readers, hear these narrations about the Lord's transcendental ecstasies very attentively, for in the entire creation there is no one who can dance so gracefully as Lord Chaitanya. Similarly, the beautiful and exuberant singing of his associates, which accompanies his dancing, is also incomparable. From early dawn, on special days such as Ekadasi, Dwadasi and Vishnu Tattva appearances, Lord Chaitanya assembled all the devotees in Srivas Pandit's house and began enchanting everyone with his jubilant dancing. In the house of that most fortunate soul, Srivas Pandit, a melodious tumult of the holy names of Govinda and Gopal went up into the atmosphere. Different kirtan groups came forward from the assembled devotees. Srivas Pandit headed one group, Mukunda another, and Govinda yet another. They all sang, and the Lord danced. Excuse me. Nityananda Prabhu, that great spiritual stalwart, circumambulated the dancing Lord, while Advaita Acharya stealthily lifted the dust from the ground where the Lord danced and put it on his head. Gadadhar Pandit and others experienced divine exhilaration and looked at the Lord with tearful eyes. Hear now of how kirtan was performed to accompany the Lord's magnificent dancing. Often the holy name was sung in Paitiyari Raga. The directions resounded with the singing of the holy name, Govindam. Mahaprabhu danced in accompaniment, lost in his Sicilian body movements. The devotees sang, Hari, O Rama, Hari, O Rama. Lord Chaitanya would begin to weep during the kirtan. His tears would continue for a minimum of an hour. His long tresses tossed about upon the ground, and he would not attempt to tie them. Only hearts of stone could remain unmoved by the sight. The devotees fell swooning to the ground, trying to reach out to the Lord. When the Lord began laughing, he would break out into carefree, effervescent mirth, which would infect everyone with ecstatic joy for hours. Lord Chaitanya, being surcharged with the mood of servitorship, would be unaware of his own divinity. Jubilantly, he would repeat, "I am victorious, I am victorious." All the devotees would respond the same in chorus. At intervals, the Lord sang out so loudly that it sounded as if the entire universe would split open. Sometimes he became heavier than the earth, and it was impossible for anyone to hold him. Then, in a moment, he he would lose all his weight. Suddenly he was lighter than cotton wool and would be carried all around the house jubilantly on the shoulders of the devotees. The Lord frequently went into ecstatic trances on the smallest of provocations. This would put the devotees into anxiety, and they would chant Hari Hari loudly into his ears to awaken him. Then sometimes his entire body would shiver uncontrollably. His teeth would chatter like a little boy out on a winter morning. The next moment he was drenched in cold sweat, as if Mother Ganga was flowing out of his pores. Then his body would suddenly become burning hot, drying up all the cooling sandalwood paste applied to his person. He would release gigantic sighs and then throwing asunder the devotees. He would attempt to catch hold of their feet. At this, all the Vaishnavas would try to escape the Lord. The Lord liked to sit and rest against Nityananda, and sometimes lifting up his lotus feet, he would look smilingly at the devotees. The devotees would immediately see the chance offered by this pastime and would dash to loot the priceless treasure of the dust of the Lord's lotus feet. Sometimes, when Lord Chaitanya blissfully rolled on the ground as the devotees glorified Krishna, Advaita Acharya might say, "O you thief, we have now crushed your pride." When Lord Chaitanya danced vigorously, the earth quaked, and the devotees looked around in apprehension. But when he danced with graceful postures, he looked like the divine Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj. Sometimes he roared with the roar of 10 million lions, but he would carefully protect the devotees' eardrums. Often some devotees, but not all, could be seen the Lord moving in the air, a little above the ground. He would stare at devotees with eyes turned bright red by feelings of extreme ecstasy. They might be shocked at first, but would flee away laughing. Vishwambar would become restless with ecstasy and dance, lost in himself. He might catch someone's feet and sometimes even clamber upon his head. He would drape himself around someone's neck, weeping, and the next moment might climb onto his shoulders. Again, overcome by a youthful mood, like a playful lad, he might become restless and make sounds of musical instruments with his mouth. He would shake his foot and laugh continuously, and then get down and crawl on all fours, feeling like a baby. At times, Vishwambar entered into the mood of Shyamasundar Krishna and stood for hours in the Tribhanga position, his body bent in 3 places. He would meditate for some time and then play the flute melodiously. He would look just like Krishna, the moon of Vrindavan. When he came out of this mood, he again felt like the Lord's servitor and wept. With utmost humility, he would beg everyone wanting to serve their feet. The Lord sometimes bent his body like a wheel, his feet touching his head, remaining like this for long hours. He expressed all his ecstatic moods in wondrous ways, exquisitely dancing, immersed in the bliss of chanting his own names. His body trembled as he made frequent roaring sounds, and then become unsteady, he would fall to the ground with a crash. A dancing, resplendent, golden figure, suddenly he would be seen multicolored. Then devotees would see double images of him. The Supreme Lord Chaitanya exhibited these extraordinary displays of ecstatic emotion totally under the influence of his mood as a Vaishnava devotee. Often repeating unspeakable words, he would shout before a Vaishnava, whom he previously respected as Prabhu, and then suddenly catch him by his hair. The Lord would call out, "This fellow is my servant," and stand upon his chest, the same Vaishnava whose feet he previously tried to catch in humility. Excuse me. The devotees all around were so captivated and moved by the Lord's ecstatic symptoms that they put their hands around each other's necks and cried. The entire group of assembled Vaishnavas looked so radiant, their bodies decorated with sandalwood tilak and tulasi mala. They blissfully tasted the nectar of chanting Lord Krishna's name. The sounds of their voices, mridangas, conch shells, and kartals, mingled to a melodious uproar. At this auspicious sound of the holy name, spread and filled the azure folds, evil and misfortune disappeared in every direction. That Supreme Master is so extraordinary that the entire universe becomes cleansed of sin simply by the dancing of his disciples. The Supreme Master, Krishna himself, now dances to the accompaniment of his own holy name. How can the Puranas ever explain this supernatural phenomenon? Lord Chaitanya danced, surrounded by his devotees, loudly chanting the auspicious name of Lord Hari. Lord Shiva becomes spiritually surcharged with bliss at the sound of the Lord's name. Once he begins to dance and taste the nectar, he loses track of his person and clothes. That very name of the Lord transformed Valmiki into an embodiment of knowledge and renunciation. The same holy name offered Ajamil supreme liberation. Hearing his name, the shackles of material existence are broken. That self-same Supreme Lord has now appeared in Kali Yuga and is dancing to his own name. Narada Muni and Sukadev Goswami roam the universe singing his praises. Anantashesh, with 1,000 mouths, glorifies his name. He whose name is the best means of atonement for all my sins, that Supreme Personality, dances only to be seen by the most fortunate souls. So fallen and wretched am I, that I was not born to see that marvelous festival of Sankirtan and dance. Srila Vyasadev's son, Sukadev Goswami, praises Kali Yuga in the Srimad Bhagavatam, considering the future advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Lord has now appeared and dances, immersed within his joyful self, and chanting all with the rhythmic patting of his feet. The Vajjayanti garland around his neck swings wildly, echoing the Lord's ecstatic dancing mood. He tears up the garland and throws the shreds at his devotees' feet. He has given up his joy, rides upon Garuda's shoulders, and has forgotten his four-handed form that holds the conch, shell, disc, mace, and lotus. He has forsaken his bed of Anantashesh, and in his pastimes as Sri Gaurasundar, he now rolls in the dust, weeping, overcome with the ecstatic mood of servitorship to the Supreme Lord. Gone is his mood as the Lord and Master of all the pleasures of the Vaikuntha planets. The ecstasy of being the Lord's servants overshadows all other pleasures. The Lord is the supreme enjoyer of all pleasure, yet, disregarding the pleasure of Lakshmi Devi's company and her exquisitely beautiful face, he now prefers to wave his face and hands in the ecstasy of Sankirtan as he drowns in an ocean of acute separation from his beloved Krishna. The Supreme Lord is diligently served by elevated personalities like Lord Shiva and Narada Muni, who have given up all wealth and position for him. Now, however, Gauranga neglects his supreme absolute lordship, and with the utmost humility, taking a straw in his mouth, begs prayerfully for devotional service unto himself. In spite of the Lord's unprecedented personal example, if any wretched soul disregards devotional service to the Supreme Lord, he is so unfortunate that he throws away nectar and drinks poison. Again, there are those who read and propagate the teachings of the Srimad Bhagavatam, but establish themselves as Lord and Master, without appreciating the extraordinary beauty of devotional service. All their activities are lowly and futile. They do not know the essential truth of the Vedas, yet they deliver dissertations on the scriptures to an equally agnostic audience. They are truly like mules, carrying the burdensome load of a useless learning. The Vedas and Bhagavatam have unequivocally elucidated the elevated position of devotional servitorship to the Supreme. Lakshmi Devi, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and many other great personalities carefully cultivate this priceless process. Those who do not have complete faith in Lord Chaitanya's words are most unfortunate and are forever disassociated from his mercy. It was so divinely enchanting to see Lord Gaurasundar dance surrounded by all his associates, singing sweet melodious kirtan. We stop here for today, reading Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat by Sri Vrindavan Das Thakur. Ki Jai. Madhya Kanda, Chapter 8. Mahaprabhu displays his opulence. Ki Jai. Sriman Sarvabhavana Das Ki Jai. Reading from Sri Guru and His Grace by His Divine Grace Swami Bhakti Rakak Sridhar. And we're reading the introduction by His Divine Grace. To err is human, to err is inevitable for all, being not perfect. Still no one wants to remain imperfect. There is an element within all of us that is animate, that tends towards perfection. If it were not so, we would feel no want at all. Our tendency towards perfection is certainly very weak and limited. Otherwise we could attain the goal at once. Our limited capacity and tendency for perfection makes room for the guide or guru. A bona fide disciple must always remain fully awake to the fact that his highest spiritual fortune is but a gracious grant from the absolute truth, and not a matter of right to be demanded or fought out. Constitutionally, we are equipped only to be proper recipients of God's favor. In this connection, it should be clearly understood that an individual soul can never be substantially the same as the absolute person. Not even in his liberated or fully realized condition can an individual soul be one with Godhead. The misconception of oneness has been introduced from the slothful non-discrimination of the absolute personality, from the luminous orb around his eternal spiritual and blissful home. In fact, an individual soul constitutes only a part of a particular power of intermediate value of the Supreme Lord, and as such he is capable of being converted from both sides. He differs from the absolute entity both in quantity and quality, and he is merely a dependent entity on the Absolute. In other words, the Absolute Lord Krishna is the Master, and an individual Jiva soul is his constitutional subordinate or servant. Such a relationship is constant and really wholesome for the Jiva. The apprehension of slavery does not arise because of his free choice and immense positive gain. The freedom and individuality of the Jiva are not only unharmed by surrender to the Absolute Good, but they really thrive in him alone. Individual freedom and interest are the part and parcel of those who are of the Absolute, and so they are quite at home there. As a fish is at home in water, or an animal in the healthy atmosphere. But the freedom as well as all other qualities of the Supreme Personality are unlimited and transcendental, and so only by their partial functions do they harmonize all relative entities. Sri Guru is not exclusively the same as the Supreme Lord himself, but he fully represents the essence of the whole normal potency and embodies the most comprehensive and excellent service and favor of the Lord. As he is the fittest servitor of the Lord, he is empowered by the Lord to reinstate all misguided souls to their best interest. So Guru is the divine messenger of immortal hope and joy in this mortal and miserable world. His advent is the most auspicious and happy event to the suffering animation, and can be compared to the rising of the morning star that can guide the traveler lost in the desert. A gentle touch of Sri Guru's merciful hand can wipe away the incessant tears from all weeping eyes. A patriot or philanthropist makes the problem only worse in his frantic and futile attempt to alleviate the deep-rooted pain of a suffering soul. As an ignorant doctor does in eagerly handling an unfortunate patient. Oh, the day when the poor soul realizes the causeless grace of Sri Gurudev. Swami Bhakti Rakak Sridhar. This essay was originally published in 1934 in The Harmonist. Okay, we stop here. Jai Sri Guru and His Grace Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Patsila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha.
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha.
Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudan.
Gopala Govinda Sri Madhusudan.
Giridhari Gopinath Narana Mohan.
Giridhari Gopinath Narana Mohan.
Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra.
Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra.
Gadadhara Sivasari Gora Bhakta Vrinda.
Gadadhara Sivasari Gora Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Rupa Sanatan Data Raguna.
Jaya Rupa Sanatan Data Raghunatha.
Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raguna.
Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunatha.
Ejai Kusai Kuri Charana Bandham.
Jai Gosai Kori Charana Vandana.
Yahweh Te Vignana Savita Puram.
Jai Vidana Kori Satuna.
Ejai Kusai Jamuri Tarada.
Jai Gosai Nuri Tarada.
Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanebas Janame Janame Mohe Abhilas Ejai Kusai Jabe Bhaja Kolaba Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korila Prakash Anande Bola Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Shri Guru Vaishnava Pare Majayama Shri Guru Vaishnava Padma Koriya Hari Nam Sankirtana Kori Narottama Das Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Sachinandana Jaya Sachinandana Jaya Sachinandana Kora Hari Kora Hari Jaya Sachinandana Kora Hari Nitai Koranga Nitai Koranga Jaya Kora Hari Nitai Kora Haribo Nitai Kora Haribo Nitai Kora Haribo Nitai Kora Haribo Jaya Sabai Kar Sisi Guru Koranga Sinda Radha Giridhar Ki Jai Om Vishnupad Sila Bhakti Nimalacharya Maharaj Ki Jai Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Sri Acharya Vrinda Ki Jai Om Vishnupad Sila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Om Vishnupad Sila Bhakti Rakak Sira Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Bhagavan Sila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Sri Rupanuga Gurvaga Ki Jai Namacharya Sila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Sabashara Sri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Sabashara Sri Mama Prabhu Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Ganga Devi Ki Jai Yamuna Devi Ki Jai Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat Ki Jai Sri Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Sri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Sri Vrindavanam Ki Jai Sri Purushottama Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ki Jai Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat East London Chapter Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat West London Chapter Ki Jai. Samadvaita Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Samadvaita Vaishnava Mandala Ki Jai, Hari Nam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari.